Lived there the first 30 years of my life.
Right.
I enrolled at A&M in fall semester 1941, and of course the war came along 3 or 4 months later, and I stayed in school for a while, and then early 43, a group of us that had become members of the enlisted reserve were called up, and I think it's 1,400 of us left A&M the same day.
Is that right? All left the same day?
Yes. Going to different training centers
Right.
all over the country. I went to training center over Fort Hood. However, they had closed that school down over there, the Officer Candidate School, and they had promised us if we would stay in the school until we were called in, that we'd all get a chance to go to Officer Candidate School. So I went over to Fort Hood, but while I was there, they closed the school. They closed the school down, and then I was transferred to Fort Riley, Kansas. And later, I did get an OC school up at Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Yeah.
So I didn't go overseas as early as some of them did. In fact, I wasn't over there when they had the Normandy landing. I came along later, just sent over as just a replacement person, and was assigned to a unit that was already overseas. It was December of 1944 when I went over there, and there wasn't a whole lot going on at that time because everybody was more or less wintered in. And but I was over there about 6 months. Duty while the war was going on. I think it ended in May the 6th, 7th, sometimes.
Right.
Around that time, yeah. But when I first got there, I was assigned to the 103rd Infantry Division, and was also assigned to their reconnaissance troop. Every infantry division has what they call a reconnaissance troop, and I was a member of that troop, and that's about it. We spent about 6 months in combat or exposed to it. I heard that you said that you had went to see Saving Private Ryan, wasn't it? I saw that show. And
what were your thoughts?
Well, they crammed a lot of action into a short period of time. They only had a couple hours, you know.
Right.
And that show left you with the impression that it was just one continuous battle. I mean, it was just, you know, going all the time. Well, I think they overdid it a little bit. It was true. It was true in a lot of ways, but and I didn't see the landing in Normandy, so I can't talk as an expert. But I think they made it They piled it on a little thick, I thought. And I'm not here to tell you that it wasn't like that at times. It was.
Sure.
But it just didn't continue like that just all the time.
Right, right. Tell me a little bit about what your job, more about your job as in reconnaissance with the 103rd. What'd you wake up in the morning and do when you were busy?
When I was first assigned to the 103rd, we were kind of wintered in, you know. I went over there in December, and their winters are a little bit more severe over there than they are here. And lots of snow on the ground, and really when I joined the unit, why, we were just, when I say dug in, I mean we were occupying houses and just about everything else that we could find to stay in during that time. We were doing a certain amount of reconnaissance work, where we would go out at night and try to secure information. It's helpful. I don't know that we did a real good job of it, but that's what we were supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember exactly. It must have been February or March. I guess it was February when we had our last big offensive over there. It had thawed out enough to where the vehicles could move around. So
was this close to the Battle of the Bulge, or about the same time?
well, that came later.
Mm-hmm.
The Battle of the Bulge was one of the last big offensives that the Germans. That was their last.
That was their last hurrah.
Yeah, that was
hoping they could turn the tide of the war at the last second. Right? But you were talking about the offensive that you were involved in.
Yeah, that was at Bastogne where that battle took place.
Right.
And I think they called it the Battle of the Bulge because the Allies were trying to keep a straight line, you know. They were, and when the Germans counterattacked, they put a pretty good bulge in that line.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the reason they called it the Battle of the Bulge.
Right. Right.
It involved units of the 7th Army, I believe.
Right.
I was over at the time, but we weren't up too close to Bastogne.
Where were you exactly? I don't think I've really gotten that. Where when you went over there in December, where did you go?
We landed in England, got right off of the boat onto a train. It took us down to Tommy, I forget names,
Okay.
but it
Down
the southern
somewhere
part.
near the channel, right?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
the southern part of England. Got off of that train and got on landing crafts.
Would it have been Dover?
No.
No, not Dover.
No.
Okay.
I wish I had a map.
That's okay.
I could
that's
pick it out probably.
Right.
But we got right off the train, got right on to landing crafts, and went across the channel to I don't know. I want to say La Havre, but I'm not sure about that.
Mm-hmm.
But we went across, and of course the Normandy landing was several months before that time.
Right.
And everything was secure when the group I was with went across the channel. We immediately were sent to different units, and I didn't know that I was going to the 103rd, didn't know anything about the 103rd. But that's where I was sent, and as I mentioned before, every infantry division has a reconnaissance troop.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some training in both horse cavalry and mechanized cavalry. Of course, they had pretty much done away with the horses by that time, but and we were mechanized, and most of our vehicles were either the quarter-ton Jeeps or the armored cars. So we were usually one of the lead elements. We would try to make first contact with the enemy, and then when we made contact with them, usually we pull back and let the ground troops take over.
That first contact must have put you in some pretty interesting situations.
Well, a few times it did, yes, sir. Sure did.
What were the most harrowing? Did anything come to mind that you thought, well, this may be it?
Tommy, I didn't like the night patrol. We got in some trouble several times, getting in minefields or getting in an area where the enemy knew the terrain very well and had their mortars or other field pieces zeroed into a certain area, and we got into some pretty good skirmishes at night, and I didn't like the night fighting. I like to see what was going on.
Yeah.
But I guess those were some of our worst experiences at night. But in, I guess it was late February or early March, when it thawed out pretty good, and we were able to make our last push, which led up to the war's end.
Now, where were you? Were you in France?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
We were in the Alsace-Lorraine area of France some of that time, and then right at the end of the war, our unit went up through into Austria, and actually that's where the war ended for our group. You mentioned something about the Battle of the Bulge or Bastogne. There was a general officer up there. I believe he was with the 101st Airborne. I believe he was. But he made quite a name for himself. During that time, his name was Anthony McAuliffe.
Anthony what?
McAuliffe. I don't know.
Oh, McAuliffe? Okay.
Yeah. And after that battle was over, they promoted him. They gave him another star. And we had lost our general. He had, well, it was physical problems. And so they promoted McAuliffe to Major General and sent him down and made him division commander of the 103rd. When we went through the Alsace-Lorraine area, which is a part of France, and the last town of any size that we went through was Innsbruck, Austria, and this is right toward the end of the war now.
Right.
So we saw pretty stiff action all the way into Innsbruck. But after we went in there and secured everything, they decided that our division would make the drive up through the Brenner Pass, which is a pass between Austria and Italy. The little town of Brenner sits right at the top of the pass, just a small town. But that's what our objective was. We were supposed to meet the Fifth Army coming up from up out of Italy, and of course we were going down through Austria into Italy. And I forget just the day that it was. Seemed to me it was the 4th or 5th day of May. They formed a task force in Innsbruck, and I think because McAuliffe had done a pretty good job at Bastogne, I think they were honoring him by letting his division make up the task force. And they picked the reconnaissance troop to lead the task force. Now, the whole task force was mechanized and motorized. The ground troops, they weren't walking. The ground troops were loaded into the different vehicles, a lot of them by these trucks. And we made our final push up the pass on the 3rd, 4th, or 5th day of
May.
May, yes. We had been hitting pretty good opposition all along the time till we got to Innsbruck. And as far as I could tell, there wasn't a single shot fired after we got into Innsbruck and secured everything. And then they decided that we would make this push on up through the mountains. It's the Austrian Alps. I don't know why, but my platoon was picked to lead the task force.
And what?
I was a second lieutenant, and I was in charge of one of the platoons within the troop. And I don't know why, but we got we got the job of leading the task force, and it was quite an experience. And as I say it, as far as I know, not a shot was fired, and it was about 35 miles from Innsbruck to little town of Brenner. And when we first started out, I guess we're pretty careful, and was progressing with a lot of caution. We would, because these mountains is just one switchback after the other, and we would go a piece and then get out and reconnoiter a little bit on foot, and we were being careful. We just knew that there's going to be a setup for us up there, but it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And we got about 1/3 up there, and they radioed us to everything looked to be clear and to proceed as fast as we could, or proceed with a whole lot more speed than we had been speed. So I guess it was around 11 o'clock in the evening or at night when we took off from Innsbruck. And it was between 1 and 2 the next morning when we got up there.
Mm-hmm.
Took us, I guess it took us 2.5 to 3 hours to go the distance of 35 miles, about 35 miles.
And this was, you said this was at Brenner?
Yes.
Now, is
They
that
called
still
it,
in Austria?
or
is that in Italy?
Well, the little town of Brenner sits right on the line.
On the border?
Yes, between Italy and Austria. Not much to the town, really. But they had a pretty big German unit that was in garrison there. They had barracks and everything. So when we finally got up there, got to Brenner, the gentleman commanding the German forces, he had disarmed all of the forces up there, and they were just waiting. They were just waiting for us to surrender.
Is that right?
And this
had the war ended yet?
No,
I mean, Hitler
no,
hadn't surrendered.
No.
Okay.
That happened 2 or 3 days later. But we pulled into Brenner, and when we left Innsbruck, they gave us an American flag.
The people of Innsbruck.
Well, no, it wasn't the people of Innsbruck. It was somebody in our army, you know.
In your union?
Yes. Don't know where the flag came from, but anyway, they gave us the flag, and it was cold that night. You know, their weather over there is not exactly like ours over here. In fact, in May, it was still snowing a little bit over there.
Yeah, really.
And I can remember, I was in the lead vehicle. It was an armored car, and there was 3 other soldiers in there with me. Three members of our platoon. So we took the flag, and actually it was cold. I kind of wrapped the flag around me trying to keep warm. But we all along the way up there, we encountered German soldiers along the road. They had been dug in, you know, all along the road, thinking that they'd probably have to defend it. But and I don't know what happened. Even the war was not over, but they had received orders that the war for them was over. So they put up no opposition at all. And you know, we'd stop and try to talk to them, try to find out what was going on, and finally, we just took off, and we'd motion for them when we saw them along the road to keep walking on back down toward Innsbruck. When we got up to the little town, there were a bunch of barracks there that the German soldiers used, and but they had been disarmed, and the commander, who, if I remember correctly, he was about the rank of a full colonel in the Army. He met us when we were pulling in, and we disarmed him because he wasn't no resistance at all. But he handed us his pistol and told us, he spoke pretty good English, he had told us that all of his men were disarmed, and that all the weapons were inside the barracks. And that turned out to be true. Well, one of the first things we did, there was a flagpole there. One of the first things we did, we had a couple of the people who were in our vehicle to get out and run the flag up.
The flag you'd been given in
yes. So that was about it. We got back in our vehicle and started down into Italy, and got down maybe a half a mile, and they radioed us to come back, that we weren't going any further. We were going to sit there and wait until the Fifth Army came up from Italy and joined us.
And they joined you in?
It was the next day.
In Brenner?
Yes. And I wasn't around when it happened.
Where were you?
Either on my way back to Innsbruck or in Innsbruck.
I see.
Well, no, we were already in Innsbruck because they had little problems. They ran into a little opposition right to last, and they didn't get down sort of 10 or 12 hours after we did. They made it to the top about 10 or 12 hours after we did. In the meantime, it was decided that our unit would go back to Innsbruck, find a place to live, and we went back down into Innsbruck, and we found 4 houses at an intersection inside the city, and they were 2-story houses, one on each corner. There's 4 of them, and we just moved the people out, and we moved in, and we stayed there for almost 2 months, just in garrison. Not doing a whole lot, but the decision was made that we would go to the Pacific. So after about 2 months, they sent us back to a staging area back in France.
And the war in Europe ended by
yes,
now.
yes.
You were in Innsbruck.
Yes, it ended.
It ended while you were back in
It
Innsbruck.
ended 2 or 3 days after
You
we
moved.
made our run up through the pass.
Right, right. While you were on your way back to Innsbruck, somewhere right around in there.
Well, no, we were already in the book when the war officially ended.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And we just stayed there.
right.
And they,
So you went to France to a staging area because the war was still going on in the Pacific.
yes, that's right. And we were scheduled to get on a boat, go over there. But we never made it. Right before we were ready to ship out.
How you doing?
Hello, John. John, this is Tommy Turbiville.
Hi, how are you, John?
Nice to meet you, Tom.
This is
Good to see you.
this is my son, and
Wow.
so
You can see our lot's getting kind of low, so yeah, we need
You
several
need some
transports.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
we
great.
need them very much.
That's great.
It was nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you. I'm learning about the war.
I'll see you
Yeah,
later.
you got a lot of good stories to tell.
But as I say, we just stayed in Innsbruck for a couple of months.
Uh-huh.
Just in these houses that we moved the Swedes out of. I don't know what happened to them.
Right,
I guess they moved in with somebody else.
right.
And of course, the other units, they did the same thing that we were doing. They'd find a place. Innsbruck was pretty nice sized town. And
So you went to the staging area thinking you were going to go to the Pacific, but then it
Yes.
never happened because,
well, we were waiting on transportation. We were waiting on boats and ships. And,
right, and by this time the war ended in the Pacific.
Yes, that's
It was
right.
August and the bomb had been dropped. I guess you thought you were going to go over there to participate in a ground war in Japan. I
yes,
guess, right?
yes, well,
And everybody thought
there
that was
and also in the, it looked like they were just jumping from one island to another, and would wind up in Japan eventually. Then of course they dropped the 2 bombs over there in
right.
Hiroshima, I don't know. And
And Nagasaki, right.
yeah, so they changed our orders, and when we finally got the transportation, the boats and ships, why we went back to the States rather than to Japan or to the islands in the Pacific.
And that was okay with you?
Yes, sir. It sure was. I wasn't looking forward to going to the.
You figured you'd done your duty?
Well, I don't know. You know, there's a lot of them that was over there a whole lot longer than I was,
Right.
and exposed to one heck of a whole lot more than I was exposed to. While we were in Innsbruck, a couple of fellows showed up at troop headquarters, which is in one of the buildings, and inquired about who the first American soldier to get into the town of Brenner, who it was. It seemed like there was an old gentleman that lived in Kansas City that he was a Russian Jew that had left that country over there years before, and had finally wound up in Kansas City and owned a bunch of movie theaters. His name was Toby Brenner. Now, his story goes that the town was named after his family, that they had, well, anyway, at one time they had come through the town of Brenner, his family had, and settled there for a short period of time. and named the little place Brenner. So he was interested in finding out who the first Allied soldier was that went into Brenner. And our troop commander told him that 4 of us was in an armored car, that were the first ones to go there. We didn't know it, but he had offered a $1,000 war bond to the first Allied soldier who went through the town of Brenner. So we supplied the gentleman with the information of the 4 people, and a short time later we got a letter from the War Department saying that they had split the war bond, the $1,000 war bond, into 4 parts, and had sent one to each family back in the States. So, of course, $250 today didn't sound like near as much as it did then.
Did back then?
Yeah.
And you were one of those 4?
Yes.
And you got one of those $250 war bonds?
Yeah. I was
Do you still have it?
No.
You cashed it in, huh?
Yeah, I kept it till I moved to Bryan in 1954, and I was scraping and trying to get all the money I could to buy into this dealership.
Right.
So I sold. I didn't have a whole lot. I sold, or cashed in the war bond, and
To help start your car dealership.
yes, a few other bigger things that I had. I had purchased a lot up at Camp Creek, and I unloaded that at the same time. I, just trying to get a little money together, and I moved down here in 1954.
Is that when you started the dealership?
Yes, I had a couple of partners with me, and one partner we bought out 5 years later in 1959, and the other one I bought out in 1970. 1970, and since 1970 I've had the dealership by myself.
Mm-hmm. That's a great story about the war bond, and how you. Now is Mr. Brenner, is he still alive?
No.
No.
I did go see him though, shortly after I got back to the States.
So he was another generation older than you.
Yes.
He was an older.
Yeah, he was.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he was in his. I'd say he was probably in his late 60s or early 70s.
I see.
When I went up there to visit.
So how old were you in December of '44 when you went overseas, or in '41 when you enrolled?
I was born in the last week of December, 1923. I was 20 or 21 years old when I went overseas.
All right. If you were, you had, 21.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 21 when you went overseas, and you would have been just been 18 or 19 when you enlisted.
Yes.
Out of A&M.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was 17 or 18 years old when I enrolled at A&M in September of 1941.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The school's changed a whole lot.
Yeah, it has, hasn't it?
It's got women now.
Yeah, it does.
The enrollment back then was about 6,000. And everybody was in the Corps, unless they had a physical disability.
Yeah.
And everybody lived on the campus in those old dorms. I lived in Law Hall. They tore it down 2 or 3 years ago. Law and Prairie both.
Right.
But that's a dormitory that I lived in.
Right.
And
Going back, a question I was going to ask you. So when the war ended, you were in Innsbruck, so you didn't get to go to Paris and join in the celebration and parades.
I had one trip to Paris, yes.
Mm-hmm.
During that time I was over there, I had a couple of short leaves.
Right.
I went back to a town called Nancy. It was in France for 2 or 3 days. I got back there and they gave me clean clothes and washed me up a little bit. And, this is something that we missed a whole lot, being able to bathe every day or take showers. We just didn't have the facilities for that during the time that the war was going on.
Yeah. Were you married when
No.
when you were over there?
No.
It was after you came back?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you came back, did you go back into A&M?
Yes, I did.
Went back to A&M immediately?
Yes, I did. After,
1945?
It was the first summer semester. Well, I might be wrong when I say that, but when the war broke out, A&M went on a trimester basis, at 3 semesters a year rather than 2, and
that was so kids that did come back at different times would have a chance to, I guess, get a whole semester in. It gave them more opportunities.
yes, I think so. Yes,
Yeah.
I think
To
so.
enroll.
But I stayed here and finally graduated after the second summer. They went back to regular semesters when after war ended. So I graduated at the end of, in September, I believe it was, and after the second semester of 47.
47.
Yeah. And then I went back to Hearn for 7 years and worked at a automobile dealership. And then in 54, I was able to come down and buy into the place.
Wow. So you were just in, you left, you came back home from overseas
Yes.
in August? Would that have been when because that's when the bomb was dropped in August, and I guess if you were fixing to go.
I came home, but I didn't, I wasn't separated from the service right then. I stayed in a while.
Right.
But no, it was still sometimes between the time that they dropped the bombs and the time that I was actually separated from the service.
I see. I see.
I want to say sometime, a matter of months, but I forget. Hell,
it was a few years ago.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. It was. What, obviously you're very proud of your service and the entire service of the Americans in the war.
Yes, sir. We did, I think, a pretty good job. I'm talking about the armed forces as a whole. We had a lot of people. I think we probably had, in all armed forces, the ones that went over and the ones that didn't go over. But I think at one time, we had about 10 million people in service.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Yes, sir. But they were, I don't remember the most that they had in Europe at one time, nor do I know how many they had in the Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
But total numbers in all of the armed forces, I think was around 10 million, I think. Yeah. And as a whole, I thought they did a real good job. I really do. Everybody seemed to be more patriotic.
Yeah.
At that, excuse me, at that time, and I think it was because the way that we got into the war,
right.
You know, with the Japanese bombing Pearl Harbor. I just think that everybody was more patriotic because of what happened.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think because I mean, there were feelings that there would be Japanese aggression to the west coast of the United States.
Absolutely.
Everybody
Yes,
felt that it was coming.
Yes, sir.
It was coming towards the United States. And oh yeah, there's a patriotism that was involved then that will, unfortunately, I'd like to think I'm wrong, but unfortunately, I don't think that we can ever get back again.
Well, everything has changed, Tommy.
Sure.
You know, we're living in a different world now.
Oh yeah.
But War II, you didn't have many draft dodgers. Everybody that was eligible to go, everybody that was physically able, mentally able, they didn't try to stay out. They tried to join as soon as they get in there.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we lost some students out at A&M just within just a few days of Pearl Harbor. And they weren't going to stay in school now. They kept a lot of us there before because they had promised us a chance to go to OC school,
Mm-hmm.
or secondary school, if we would wait. They said they didn't need us at that time, and if we would wait a short period of time, that they would call us all in, we'd go to basic training, and after basic training, we'd go to OC school. And they kept their word. It would happen just that way.
So you left A&M and went to, where'd you say you went to Virginia? Is that right?
No, the first, they sent us to Fort Hood, Texas.
Yeah, Fort Hood, that's right.
And
Was that soon after Pearl Harbor, or was that after New Year's of '42, or when was that?
it was early 43.
Early '43. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so you stayed at A&M for a year.
Yes.
Almost. Okay.
Yes, I
Okay.
did. Yeah. Well over a year.
Okay. Okay, now I got it. A little over a year.
Yeah.
And early '43 is when you went to Hood,
Yes.
and then you were sent to Virginia,
Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Kentucky. That's what
Yes,
you said.
yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And then in December of '44 is when you went overseas.
Yes.
And you went over by boat?
Yes.
Where'd you leave from?
Up around Boston. I think it was Boston.
Yeah.
Remember serves me correctly.
Was that a long ride?
7. No, it didn't take us but 4 days going over.
Yeah.
When we came back, the boats we came back on weren't as good as the one that we went over. We went over on a ship. It was the Louis Pasteur.
Mm-hmm.
It was a French French luxury liner at one time, but they had converted it over to, they had converted it for wartime use, and it didn't have the luxuries then that it had. And then when we came back on what they call a Liberty boat. They were quite a bit smaller. It took us about 7 days coming back.
Yeah. And you were in a hurry.
Oh, I was. I wanted to get home. You know, one of the things that every night when you try and go to sleep, I think that you were wondering when in the world is this going to be over here and we can go home. You know?
Yeah.
I sure wanted to get home. Of course, I just knew, you know, that once they sent me over, I just knew the war was going to end in a hurry. But I was ready to come home, really. I really was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, we didn't know that we would be sent straight home. We were scared to death we were going to the Pacific, yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite as ready to go to the Pacific as I was just to get overseas.
Right.
I really wanted to get overseas bad. I really did. But I was young and I wasn't as smart then as I.
You were gung-ho.
Yeah.
You were ready to go. If you were going to be
Yes,
in it,
sir.
you wanted to.
Yes,
You wanted
sir.
to do a job.
Yes, sir.
And boy, you did. I've visited with people here in this town that have been both in Europe and in the Pacific. I guess some of Al's friends
Yeah.
that are over there. Mr. Franz, who was
Well, I'd a whole lot rather have gone
yeah.
to Europe
Uh-huh.
than go to the Pacific. I had no desire to go to the Pacific.
Right.
But
I visited with Glenn Morgan. You know Glenn?
Glenn Morgan,
Yeah.
I don't
He lives up
know.
in Camp Creek, and he's a friend of Al Hansen's.
I see.
He was on the USS Indianapolis
I see.
that was sunk, and there were only 318 survivors out of 1,100.
Is that right?
318 survivors floated in the Pacific for 5 days before they were found. The rest of them either died of exposure or were eaten by sharks. And he's quite a story to tell.
I bet he had.
Oh yeah, it was an amazing story. But all of them have, like you, and I've talked to Sonny Franz and Dr. Cooper and Mr. Edmonds and some other people around the area.
Yes,
They
sir.
were both in Europe and the Pacific.
Yes, sir.
And but I sure honored to hear your story. Thank you for everything you did for us. You all haven't been thanked enough. Just thank you.
I think we have. We've had it pretty easy since those days.
Well, you had to come home and earn a living, and
That's right. I was a whole lot more serious-minded
yeah,
when I got home. I don't think I would have. I don't think I would have ever finished A&M had it not been for the war. I wasn't much of a student.
well, you grew up, right?
Yes.
The war made you grow up.
Yes, sir.
Uh-huh.
But I wasn't much of a student. I got by. Well, my grades weren't anywhere near what they should be. In fact, I don't think they'll let me stay out there now if I was in school now and my grades were what they were before the war, you know. I don't know. But after I came back, I was much more serious than I was before I went over there. And of course, they had a pretty good deal. They paid us under the GI Bill of Rights. They paid us to go to school. They bought our books, they paid our tuition, and they provided housing for us.
Mm-hmm.
And besides that, they gave us, I think they gave me $90 a month, plus books, tuition, and place to stay,
Mm-hmm.
and food. It was pretty doggone nice, it really was.
Yeah.
But I never would have finished school, I don't think, but the longer I stayed in the service, the more convinced I was that I ought to go back and get my diploma or finish school. I thought I'd be more able to compete. Now, when I got out of the service, I really didn't know whether I wanted to stay in or go back and be a civilian.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided that I'd get out, because even if I stayed in the service, I'd have needed an education. And you need an education for just about everything now. But I thought maybe by the time I got out of school, I might want to go back to the service again. And that avenue was left open for me. But by the time I stayed out a couple of years, I had no desire to go back.
Mm-hmm.
I was a full-blown civilian by that time.
And proud of it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That's great. Thanks for visiting with me.
Okay, Tommy.
It's been wonderful.
I hope that
It's been,
Al didn't
no,
blow this thing out of proportion.
I didn't know what to expect, and there's a lot of great stories there, and this will be on. I've decided while I'm talking to you that I'm going to make this 2 parts because there's more to tell than I can tell in one part. So it'll be on tomorrow morning, the first part, and then next Thursday will be the second part.
Okay.
And I'll be sure and get you a tape and deliver it to you.
Okay. I had a few clippings
Mhm.
of the little trip we made up through Brenner Pass.
Mhm.
It was an account of it was published in Stars and Stripes,
Mhm.
and then the information got back to our hometowns, and we got some pretty fair little write-ups out of it. If you would like to see a few clippings I've got, well,